This is the Jared Thomas Show podcast. Episode number 11 is what you are listening to. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things. This, of course, is available anywhere podcasts are found, and I would really appreciate if you would just tell a friend. This time around, it's a look at headlines. It's my take on things that are going on in this great big world around us. And recently, an amateur boxer with methed up superpowers assaulted officers, and police reacted as they should. So says the chief of police in the Fargo area. Fargo Police Chief David Zabalski has criticized, now this is the part that frankly I care about, and if I'm being honest, I think you should care about as well. He criticized the release of the video. He claims it was irresponsible. The news director of the guy who shot the video, so as life would have it, as happenstance would have it, the reporter just happened to be in, I think, an apartment that was somewhere above this altercation taking place. So he does what we do in this day and age. We don't ever live in the moment. We simply grab for our cell phones because we need to have this video. So he takes the video gets released, has something obnoxious amount of views, like 10 million views as of the time of this recording, and people everywhere are talking about it because here's a methed out dude taking on 3 Fargo police officers. In the end, the Fargo police officers win the day. They go, they find the guy, they arrest him, and of course the court process will then get in play here. But here's, again, the part that I think is most interesting. And it's going to tie in. There's sort of a theme in this week's headlines that I think is just kind of jarring, I think is a good word for it. In this case, this reporter, of course, did absolutely nothing wrong. This reporter took the video. This reporter released the video. This reporter and its associated news agencies are then benefiting from him being in the right place at the right time, if you will, which sounds a little weird with this case in point. If we are going to start as a society to try to curb media's ability to cover and release stories, this is just going to get worse. You're going to see less reporting. You're going to see less accurate reporting. You're certainly going to see less reporting done by journalists if every time they go out, they shoot some video, they go out, they happen to be at a party or they happen to be downtown, blah, 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 and they see an incident unfold and they take it and then they release it. You don't need anybody's permission to do that. Hell, it happens on the internet all day, every day. People everywhere. We're a voyeuristic society. We can't get away from it. So, Mr. Zabalski, I understand that your police officers, quite frankly, if you've seen the video, you would see that the police officers, it's not really their time to shine, as my kid would say. They didn't exactly, rise to the occasion. Now, they're going to tell you that they have all kinds of rules and regulations that they must play by. And, of course, criminals are criminals. They don't have any rules. But in the end, when you watch the video, you'll see anytime there's a 3-on-1 and you have the long arm of the law at your disposal, I think you're a little bit upset because your guys didn't exactly look like a well-run, well-trained police department. That's really the issue here, I think. And I think if we're just calling a spade, that's what we should say. Keep recording videos. Keep putting them on the internet. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't. In fact, our society, our democracy, our republic depends on checks and balances across the board. So no matter who you are, most of us, 95+% of us, walk around with a small computer in our pockets every single day. And to keep people honest, it's just, quite frankly, the world that we live in. In Grand Forks, it was announced recently that another longtime restaurant, in fact, a couple of them, are going to fall by the wayside. This time around, the Italian Moon, and by the way, later in the week, Fat Albert's and Slapshots Pizza right here in Grand Forks, North Dakota, are going to close their doors. And, of course, they're going to close their doors for the reasons that restaurants close their doors, most specifically just not enough business. Now, it's interesting, back to being online and reading people's comments and how sad we are. And, oh, I can't believe it. I mean, the Italian Moon, what are you doing to me? The Italian Moon, I believe, at the time of this recording, will be open June 18, 19, 20. And then they're pulling the pin. They're calling it a day. Had a good run. Started in 1965. Keith Moon was the guy that got it going. He wanted to have a pizza and some pasta and Mexican food, and so that was the restaurant. And for many years, decades, really, it was amazing. It's one of those places when people come back to Grand Forks that they go to because they have so many memories at the Italian Moon. Me in particular, I can remember going to the Italian Moon back in my Haight-Ashbury days and sitting down, and there was 10-cent wings at the time. And I absolutely hammered those 10-cent wings. It was ridiculous. I spent almost more on 10-cent wings than I did on anything else. And I would sit there and I would put on a proverbial show. And that was my big Italian Moon memory. They have this Oreo fluff stuff that I like, so I'd eat the hell out of that too. And quite frankly, the best sausage pepperoni pizza that you could find up and down the Red River Valley. But like you, I can't tell you the last time I went to the Italian Moon. And the reason why the Italian Moon is closing is the same reason why we no longer have UND women's hockey on the campus of the University of North Dakota. Nobody went. If there was 10,000 people hanging from the rafters for a UND women's hockey game, UND women's hockey would still be on the planet. Conversely, then, if people were still going to the Italian Moon at the rate by which they said that they would or might or could or whatever, the Italian Moon would still be open. The same could be said for Fat Albert Subs and Slapshot Pizza. Again, two longtime local Grand Forks restaurants that are closing their doors for good. Had you just spent more money, had you just gone to these restaurants more often, had you just worked them into your rotation of restaurants that you go to, it's likely true that these longtime iconic Grand Forks landmarks would still be here. Certainly a sad day, certainly something that I'm sure the burden and the responsibility was felt by the current owners of both facilities. It was something that they didn't want to do. In fact, they say as much in published reports that that's not anything that they wanted to do, and that they understood that these places had been around forever, and that they'd poured their heart and their soul and their pocketbooks and their time and their treasure, all of it, into these restaurants to try to make them work, and they just didn't. But when it comes time to figure out why they didn't, barring any scandal that I'm unaware of, we got to look in the mirror. So when you look around and you look around Grand Forks and you're concerned about other long-time businesses that may or may not shut down, many of you find the time to go to the Kegs this time of year. The Kegs is open for a very truncated short period of time, and I believe it's only open because the eldest among us remember that spot as a hangout spot when they were kids. They could go to the Kegs and they could hang out with their cars, and they could talk to their girlfriends, and they could talk to their friends, and maybe they could get a slush burger, or maybe they got a French fries or some onion rings, and they just the Kegs, right? And so the Kegs still open, although I believe almost every year somebody tries to sell the Kegs. It's open for, again, a very truncated period of time. And I believe that is Memorial Day to Labor Day. If not, that time frame might be just a little bit shorter. And the hours themselves are not like you would expect of a normal restaurant. So before you go over there, make sure you have all of that locked in. But the Kegs is another one. Red Pepper seems to be doing fine, but could you imagine a day if the Red Pepper closed? This town would lose its ever-loving mind, and rightfully so. The Red Pepper's ours. The Red Pepper started here. The Red Pepper is So continue to support your local restaurants is the theme of the story. So we don't have to talk about more iconic Grand Forks restaurants leaving us. It's a sad day indeed. I'm sure that Mr. Perper, the current owner of the Italian Moon, gave it his best shot. Probably hung on a little longer than he should have. Poured everything he had into it. I know the Towers family were trying to get out of it a while back, and I believe Brad is still in the restaurant business here in Grand Forks. I think he owns a couple of Wendy's restaurants here in town, and I believe he's probably equally as sad. I know his dad, Ken, was Mr. Italian Moon and was really there for the bulk of the success, supported local athletics, supported the kids of this community. He was the guy that made sure that visiting teams ate after games at little or no cost to anybody. He was a really staunch supporter, and really that was the lifeblood of the Italian Moon. And it breaks our hearts when you see something like that, a good local restaurant run by local people that pay taxes, own homes, drive the streets, buy groceries, do all the things in this community that you do. But again, I can't say it enough. You got to mix in these iconic restaurants into your going out mix. Make sure that you're patronizing them. Make sure that you're going out. Make sure that you're supporting them. Because if you don't, if you think somebody else will do it, you'll see a for sale sign out in front of these properties, which is what we are seeing today. In more tragic news here on a headlines edition of the Jared Thomas Show podcast, man charged with two legislator shootings also targeted two other lawmakers. This nutsack's name is Vance Bolter. Disguised himself as a police officer because he's a tough guy. He was heavily armed with firearms and body armor. That's according to a federal complaint that's been filed against him. He is suspected in the political assassination of Minnesota Representative Melissa Hortman. He's been federally charged, so said officials. Vance Bolter, he's 57, is charged with stalking Hortman and Senator John Hoffman, the murders of Melissa and Mark Hortman, and firearms offenses for the shooting of the Hortmans and of John and Yvette Hoffman. Bolter also went to the home of two other legislators in between the shootings of the Hortmans and the Hoffmans, said acting U.S. Attorney of Minnesota Joseph Thompson. The legislator in Maple Grove wasn't home, and an officer encountered Bolter in New Hope, after which he left. He had this planned campaign of violence. I don't care really what side of the aisle you're on, if you're a Republican or a Democrat or somewhere in between. I can't tell you the amount of people that just say, I vote with my conscience. I vote both Republican and Democrat. I don't really. Okay. That's not really the point. There's people out there that are hurting. They have some mental health issues, or they have some fantasy or some delusional ideas about how things should go, or they're so fixated on one party or the other. And I don't believe that you can say anymore that it is just Republican or Democrat. It is both sides of the aisle. One side is turning out to be a little bit more violent than the other side, but I think we can just stop trying to compare bad behavior. I think that's where it begins, right? In this case, this guy had a political affiliation. In fact, he's a one-time appointee of current Governor Tim Walz in the state of Minnesota. But we have this conversation when this stuff happens because it's horrific. It horrifies us. It scares us to death. We don't know what to do. We think, well, how can you prevent this from happening in the future? And sadly, the answer to this is that if you're going to choose to have a free society, if you're going to choose to have the life that we have with the freedoms that we have, unfortunately, this is going to happen. We're not going to take away guns. We're not going to create gun legislation. We're not going to come and send everybody to your home, law enforcement, to take your guns and your weapons and your knives and anything else that may kill you or hurt you. That's not what we do here. So we have to regulate ourselves, or resign ourselves rather, to the idea that this stuff is occasionally going to happen. But the things that we can control, I believe, is the tenor and enthusiasm by which we want to discuss really anything. Politics seems to get the most of that sort of conversation because it doesn't take long to go online and you find one person that believes that, well, Donald Trump, all things Donald Trump, MAGA, 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 got it. Yeah, oh my God, he's the truth, the light, and the way. Then if you go scroll a little bit further down in your social media feeds, what you'll find is somebody that says just the opposite. Oh, he's a cult leader. He wants to be king. He's a devil reincarnated. Okay, got it. So what do you do with that? The problem is that most of us aren't educated. Most of us don't take the time to figure out somebody's policy position or who's voting this way and who's voting that way and the why behind it. We just simply think that Democrats win, all Democrats are bad. Republicans win, all Republicans are bad, if that's your particular flavor. But the tenor and the noise floor on this stuff over the past decade or more is at a level where people feel desperate and they feel like if they don't act and if they feel like they don't do something drastic, that the status quo is going to continue. And they frankly feel like we can't have that. The other thing that comes out of these sorts of situations is other lawmakers then take the time to call for truth, respect, and humanity. And much like 9/11 or any other tragedy or time in history that you've lived through where meaningful core things have happened that you remember, right? The bombing of Pearl Harbor, if you lived through that, you remember where you were. You remember where you were standing. You remember who you were talking to. You remember what you were doing. You remember all of it. 9/11 would be another example of that. Sometimes we get numb to it. Sometimes we get to the point to where, well, it sucks that happened. Well, let's go to the grocery store. That's kind of how we live our lives. And part of the reason we live our lives that way is because of the people that have come before us that have made the tough decisions and sacrifices for us to do so. Lawmakers are opportunists at the end of the day, and this is no different when they say, hey, look, this is what's gone on here is awful. We can't have this. This is not the way that we do things. Senator Mike Lee turned to X to say on Saturday that the June 14 shootings that injured Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette and killed Speaker House Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark. This is what happens when Marxists don't get their way. In a separate post, he said, "Nightmare on Wall Street," seemingly a play on Governor Tim Walz's name. Lee has since deleted the posts. So you have a horrific tragedy. You have lawmakers that are calling for truth, respect, and humanity. And then the first opportunity that a Republican from Utah gets, Mike Lee, who's apparently far enough away from it, takes the Republican angle, Waltz is a Democrat, and decides that he's going to make a political statement of sorts. This is the kind of stuff when I talk about lowering the noise floor, we should have had opposite. Should have been, hey, thinking about praying for whatever his spiritual persuasion is. My thoughts and prayers. My wife and I are hoping that anything, words of comfort, something that symbolizes leadership coming out of this man's mouth would have been much more appropriate than what he did here. Minnesota House Leader Harry Niska, he's a Republican in Ramsey, took to X. He said to denounce the post as well. So as you can see, now the noise floor is picking up again. Niska said Tuesday that Lee is someone he has met and has had a lot of respect for, but thought his actions were inappropriate. Well, there's been a lot of people from all different angles saying a lot of, I think, baseless and inhumane things on social media, Niska said, and it's just disappointing. I just don't think there's any basis to it. And at this point in time, assigning blame to anyone, and the post goes on. These people, they can't help themselves. And then they'll wonder why this stuff will happen again. And it'll happen again because we don't know how to lower the noise floor. We're operating here. Everything, absolutely everything, regardless of political affiliation, is bringing us to a place where violence, protesting, yelling and screaming at each other is the answer. That's how we can affect this. It's not going to be about guns. It's going to be about nice civil debates, nice civil conversation. We can disagree, but we can also find compromise. And until we do that, you can expect more of what's happening with Mr. Bolter. This, to me, on this headlines edition of the Jared Thomas Show podcast, the Hortman family had raised and trained a golden retriever, his name Gilbert, through Helping Paws, a nonprofit organization that trains assistance dogs. Also died in the attack. There's a special place in hell for people that kill animals, kill pets. Again, I wasn't a dog lover. I had one. I didn't have any dogs growing up. I remember my sister asked when she was 12 years old. That was met with a hell no. No, we're not. No, we're not doing that. Never had a pet growing up. When my kid was about 8, she came to me and okay, so we got a dog. Chuckles was probably the sweetest, bestest dog you could ever ask for. When Chuckles died, a heartbroken family welcomed Mall Balls into our family, little Molly. Something that depends on you for absolutely, positively everything. Doesn't deserve to die. Deserves to be happy. Deserves to live a nice life. And if you don't want the responsibility, don't take on the pet. That, of course, wasn't the case here. But to think that in your rage that you thought, yeah, the dog's got to go too. I mean, again, the whole thing is tragic and sad. But man alive. Finally here for you, All True breaks ground on for a behavioral health center expansion. Expected to be completed in the fall of 26. I mean, the absolute who's who of North Dakota politics was in town for this deal. I mean, that's a big deal. You can't take a picture at All True without Dr. Deere in it or with the CEO, Todd Forkel, in it. So they are both there with the requisite shovels in hand. I mean, again, Emily O'Brien, Mayor Bochinsky, Kelly Armstrong. I mean, hail. The gang is absolutely here. And it's they're touting it as a game changer for behavioral health services. Governor Armstrong told the crowd of several dozen. That's how important this is. Several dozen people showed up. When completed, the roughly 17,000 square foot single-story addition will double the number of beds. The addition, expected to be completed in the fall of 26, will provide 2,000 square feet for the outpatient unit, 15,000 square feet for inpatient. It'll all be connected on the east side of the current building at 860 Columbia Road. The All True Behavioral Health Center, built in the early 1980s, occupies 21,500 square feet, provides 9,000 square feet dedicated to outpatient, and 12,500 for inpatient. During the introduction at Tuesday's ceremony, Mr. Forkel, CEO of the All True Health System, praised Armstrong for his leadership advocating for legislation related to behavioral health issues and having the courage and vision to support the All True expansion project here in Grand Forks. Behavioral health, mental health, it's a thing. Recently, the Grand Forks Public Schools hired a mental health person. Under the idea, now, whether you think it blurs the lines between what education should be doing, what education was supposed to do, when you were a kid, the hire's been made, and this is something that isn't going anywhere. Behavioral and mental health are areas that we have to get comfortable talking about. These different organizations are spending money. Your tax dollars are now being spent to talk about it, to treat it, and to help people to get better. And I'm going to tell you, for as much as it would be easy to sometimes crap all over these things, I think it's important to note that in some of the things that we've talked about just here today in this podcast, that there's obviously people that need these services. And we can argue maybe how they come to be and how they come into our lives and then how we access them. But if you don't want the schools to be treating your kids or make these services available to your kids, teachers, staff, etc., and if you don't want healthcare facilities to make this a priority and then go to the state legislature and eventually the governor to ask for more dollars so that they can help to expand in this area to help the citizens of Grand Forks who are struggling. But then on the other hand, wonder how some guy dresses up as a police officer, goes to a door of a state senator and shoots and kills her dog, and her husband. Then tell me what we're supposed to do. The civility wrapped around politics, that's a step. Do you think that's going to change anytime soon? As soon as we start to temper down a little bit, what we'll have is another election. But social media has made us less civil. Social media has made us believe that everybody gives a crap about what it is that we think or what we have to say. Not every thought you have is true. Not everything you think is reality. Not everything you think is true. Not everything you think needs to get onto a keyboard and into the world. But until we start to understand that, until we start to think that we're not going to change the world one Facebook post at a time, then we need these services. That's my look at your headlines for this time around. I thank you for listening to the Jared Thomas Show podcast. I'm going to ask you again, please tell a friend. Make sure that you subscribe, download, click all the things. Anywhere podcasts are found, you can find this bad mamma jamma. And until next time,